Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for this edition of SBB University. I am so excited to bring on this dynamic panel of experts that's joining us here today. We have Daniel Smith, who is with Advocates in Aging. How are you this morning, Daniel?
I'm doing well, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of elder law.
Sure. Yeah, I'm an elder law attorney with Advocates in Aging. I practice with attorney Ira Wiesner, who has been practicing for over 40 years now. And I am actually married to his daughter, Brandy, and she was born and raised in Sarasota, and I moved to Sarasota with her in October 2017. So I've been here almost 4 years now and love it. I'll never go back up north. So
I bet.
full-time no longer snowbirds. So it's great being here. But yeah, we practice estate planning, special needs planning, Medicaid pre-planning, guardianship, probate and trust administration. I also do veterans benefits and veterans appeals as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, today's topic is perfect. We've got our estate planning and more. So without further ado, let's introduce each of our other panelists. We have Anthony Idaspe, who is joining us from Insurance Simplified. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Aren't you proud of me that I finally mastered your last name?
It took a few years, but yes, you finally got there.
It sure did. It sure did. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of Medicare.
Certainly. So again, thanks for having me this morning. I've been involved in Medicare insurance, the industry of Medicare since 2012. Spent about 4 years traveling the country, assisting insurance agents and teaching continuing education courses regarding Medicare. So not only do I know it as a whole, but then specifically to my clients here in the Florida area. I then pivoted from traveling and working with insurance agents to helping consumers. So I've got clients in the Panhandle, Jacksonville, Miami, and all the way down to Marco Island as well. I pride myself on being an educator first. I try to offer everything that's available to my clients in the state of Florida, which now is about 17 different insurance companies covering all the different aspects and products of Medicare. We offer free consultations and free reviews of individuals' plans as the year goes on. But my priority is to make sure every individual that's ready for Medicare is just that ready and gets on it when it's their time, and then finds themselves in the plan that they're comfortable with and that they want to be in because they understand it. So me in a nutshell, I used to say I'm from New York to bring it back to the beginning, and now I live in Florida, but at this rate, I'm a Florida cracker. I've been here my entire life. I can't even claim New York anymore. So there you go. That's me.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anthony. And yes, the world of Medicare, I call it the A, B's, C's, D's, and good gracious, it can get confusion. So it's really good to have you on the show today. All right, Chad, with Edward Jones, how are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
I really didn't want to butcher your last name, so I'm going to let you say it.
Choate is how you pronounce it. The E is silent, and so is the A. So, but we've gotten everything. I've gotten everything.
Anthony will tell you it took about four or 5 years before I could get it right. So
Yeah,
I'll get there, Chad. I'll get there.
No worries.
All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into the world of financial planning and all the things that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So born and raised here in Bradenton my whole life and probably second, third generation. So I'm one of those rare breeds that is not from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which was not that way growing up. So I love to see the growth of the area. I'm one of those that really enjoys meeting new people from other places and really get to know why they moved here to what I would consider little old Bradenton. But gotten with Edward Jones as a financial advisor almost 5 years ago now. Before I was a teacher and a football coach in high school. So as Anthony said, I love educating people on the choices they have with financial planning. And specifically with Edward Jones, we really look at what's most important to you. And financial planning is not one size fits all. So everybody's different and everybody wants different things or needs different things. And so we use an established process that finds out what's important to you and personalized strategies to make sure we can reach those goals. And then probably most important thing is to make sure that that we work throughout your lifetime to make sure you stay on those goals. It's not a set it and forget it kind of George Foreman grill or whatever that was back in the late 90s. This is a we're going to meet, consistently throughout your lifetime to make sure we're staying on your goals. So really happy to be here and to be able to give some education and some insight on some estate planning.
Perfect. It's a much needed service, that's for sure. And you definitely need to have a great relationship with your financial advisor because it's quite like a marriage, isn't it, Chad?
It is. It can be.
All right. Well, last but certainly not least, I would say I saved the best for last. We have Nafi Cunningham with Tidwell Hospice. How are you?
Well, hello, Amanda, and hello, everybody else. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to see you all.
Yes, you have a wonderful background yourself. Please tell us a little bit about Nafi and how you got into this wonderful world of hospice.
Well, I think Chad is alone here by being the only Florida native around here. I hailed you here all the way from across the pond from Africa. So a long way from home.
Yes.
So I come from a small country called the Gambia. But I have been in Florida 20-some years and been with Tidwell Hospice about 5 years now, a little over 5 years. And I absolutely love what I do in working for such an organization. And you all know Tidwell, we provide hospice care for those who are at the end stage of life where you need comfort care and symptom management at home or in the hospital or in one of our facilities, which is we have several hospice houses in the area as well. But for the most part, we are helping individuals and their families because it's not just for the patient. We encompass a holistic approach of spiritual, emotional, and including the family as well in that care.
Absolutely.
So that's what I have been doing over the past 5 years. And we've been serving this community since 1980. So it has been a wonderful journey since I've been with the organization. And I'm very glad to be here.
That's awesome. Thanks, Nafi. All right, we're going to get started with a couple of rounds of questions. Daniel, we're going to start with you on our estate planning side. There's definitely a ton of different documents out there, but what would you say is one of the most important documents that you need to have in place when you're getting ready to, I would say retire, but not really. People even in their young, 30s need to have these documents. Talk to us about some of those that you recommend.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Two of the main documents that you're going to want to make sure that you have in place right now are what I call the living documents. First, the Advanced Directive for Healthcare, right? And think about this like your healthcare document. Some attorneys do a separate document for a living will, a separate HIPAA release, all of that. We at our firm, we do one healthcare document, including the living will provisions in there, designating a healthcare surrogate to make medical decisions should you become incapacitated or unable to make those decisions, right? And then granting a full HIPAA release to give that surrogate access to your medical records, right? The living medical document, very important to have. Also, a durable power of attorney, right? Somebody to sign contracts and manage your finances should you become incapacitated or be unable to make those decisions, right? Because those are the immediate documents, right? If something were to happen, a car accident, or you have some sort of medical condition where you're unable to make those decisions, you want something in place where somebody can step in, your healthcare surrogate for medical or your agent under durable power of attorney, and make those decisions on your behalf. One of the other common documents that we think about is a last will and testament. But of course, that's not in effect till you die. So a lot of people think that's the most important document, but no. The living documents are usually most important. But again, obviously you want to take a look at your will and make sure after you die, you don't leave your children or your heirs with an entire mess. And it's important to think too, if you have a family situation where you may have children or relatives that you want to leave assets to, but may have special needs, or may have problems spending money or substance abuse issues that you may not want to leave the money outright. So maybe thinking about a testamentary trust or other planning provision for them may be beneficial. And I know you'll follow up, but another thing to think about if you have unique issues or a large amount of assets or unique assets, to think about either a revocable living trust or some other sort of trust that we'll talk about later. But great question.
Yeah, I'll let you elaborate on that, Daniel, because it is now that you've mentioned the two words revocable and irrevocable. There's such a common misconception about these two different types of trusts. So give me the Cliff Notes version of what the difference is between the two.
Right. Very simple. Just think about revocable as you can get rid of it whenever you want. So you're creating the trust, right? And you have the ability to amend it, to get rid of it. And it's essentially, think about a trust like a separate legal entity, but you can create a trust and appoint yourself as trustee, right? The goal is you want a separate entity to put assets in. And if you are to become incapacitated, you have the successor trustee, could be a friend, could be a professional, to step right in and continue to manage the assets within the trust, and to avoid issues like a potential guardianship action coming up and getting those assets tied up before the court, right? And also for efficient administration outside of probate after death. So revocable means, obviously while you're alive, you can revoke the trust. Irrevocable trust, just like it sounds, once you create that, you cannot revoke it. There are very difficult ways, but usually it requires court intervention to revoke an irrevocable trust, which we won't talk about now, but it is very beneficial, particularly for Medicaid planning.
Yes.
One of the most common types of irrevocable trusts, particularly in Florida, is what's called a qualified income trust or a Miller trust. But that's essentially, if you're over the income cap for Medicaid, you can utilize one of those trusts and still be eligible for Medicaid. So irrevocable, you cannot revoke it, but it plays an important role because you will not get penalized for Medicaid for using such a trust. So very, very good question. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, and we'll loop back around to that one because it's pretty important. All right, Anthony, we're going to hop over to you, my friend. Now, people that are turning 65, I guess the first question I would ask is, do they have to go on Medicare, and do they have to take their Social Security in order to do that? How does that work?
Great questions. Probably I'll start with the Social Security aspect of it. So I don't know necessarily if it would be called a hidden clause, but it's not necessarily in a lot of the government literature out there as it pertains to signing up for Medicare. If an individual is receiving Social Security benefits prior to 65, they are supposed to, we'll put an asterisk next to that because it is the government we're talking about, they are supposed to receive their Medicare card and information in the mail prior to their 65th birthday month. So they'd be automatically signed up at that point. Someone that's not receiving Social Security benefits prior to 65, that individual would need to physically go sign up by themselves for Medicare. They can do that through the Social Security website. They can call Social Security to do so. At least you used to be able to just walk into your local Social Security office. If you can find one that's open or booking an appointment, that's also a successful means of going about that. Yeah. So at 65 is typically when you're signing up for Medicare, your 65th birthday month. You want to do that before then. You do not have to have Social Security in order to have Medicare, though.
Right.
So a lot of people get that confused just because they're dealing with the Social Security Department for everything, but they're just handling the processing of all of that. They are not requiring you to have Social Security benefits. It just makes a difference as to whether you have to go sign up or not when it comes to your time to sign up for Medicare.
Now, let's say somebody's still working, for example, they turn 65, they still have health insurance through their employer. Maybe they want to keep that health insurance. Talk to me about, do they have to take Medicare, and obviously what's the next steps if they choose not to do so?
Sure. So one of my answers I love to give is it depends. I'm working on t-shirts and hats for that now. Every situation is different. So when it comes to group insurance and whether you can stay on that or take Medicare, whether you're required to or not, it depends on whether or not your coverage is deemed credible. Credible coverage in the eyes of the government is equal to Medicare, if not better. Well, how the heck does an average Joe figure that out? If you are on group insurance, your plan administrator, your insurance company providing your benefits would furnish a letter to you, typically at the beginning of every start of that plan year, telling you whether or not your coverage is indeed credible. If it is credible, then you do not have a requirement to take Medicare when you're first eligible at 65. In fact, I have clients that have waited till 68, 72, 73. You can wait until you're going to leave that coverage or officially retire, at which point you can sign up for Medicare without getting any kind of penalty. Again, it's not a requirement as long as you have that credible group coverage. If you do not, then you want to sign up for Medicare when you are first eligible, because if you miss that window and you don't have credible coverage, you could be facing steep penalties. And unfortunately, when it comes to Medicare, those penalties are lifelong penalties.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about next why you need to sign up for your drug plan when it comes to penalties, but we'll be back around to you. All right, Chad, there's a lot of changes going on with IRA and appreciation, non-IRA annuities. Tell me some of those changes and how you get money to your children.
Yeah, so this is a topic that was really overlooked because of, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of COVID, but the Secure Act was passed in the beginning of 2020, January 2020. And we really only had about 2 months ish before COVID hit, which really changed obviously everything. So most people don't remember the Secure Act and what came out about that, because shortly after we had several other acts passed basically to try to get the country back going again and things like that. So the Secure Act did change estate planning, a big portion of it considering with IRAs. Typically with IRAs, as you passed and you gave your IRA to whoever one of your beneficiaries were, they were called inherited IRAs at that time. So an inherited IRA before the Secure Act, you were able to stretch out RMDs, which RMDs are called required minimum distributions. And you had those required minimum distributions, those RMDs, when you hit over a certain age, and it was 71 and a half. And so 70 and a half, as you receive that IRA from grandmother, grandfather, mom, or dad, and they were having to take RMDs, you could stretch it throughout your lifetime. So if I was 50 and I didn't have to take RMDs, but I got an IRA from a 75-year-old who passed and they were in the RMD stage, I could stretch that my whole entire lifetime. Now the new change is the government wants to get their money quicker. And so they shortened it to 10 years. You have 10 years now when you inherit an IRA to be able to exhaust those funds or remove those funds from the actual IRA. You could do it right in the beginning. You have many choices in that, but you have to have it done within the 10 years. Where it gets a little where it changes the estate planning process for us as advisors is if your child or grandchild is at a high earning stage in their 50s or late, early 60s, late 50s, and they're in a higher tax bracket, they will ultimately have to pay taxes from what they take out that IRA in a higher tax bracket than, let's say, the retiree who is retired. So there's some circumstances where who is it better to eat the taxes? Is it better to take from the retiree, or is it better to say, hey, this is money I'm giving to my child anyways, or grandchild, so they can deal with the taxes, but ultimately they could be paying more taxes on it than the retiree. So a lot of planning can go involved in that. There's a lot of things that we can do to help that. Some ideas, and not everything works for, not all ideas work for everyone, but there are some things you could do to kind of curtail that having to pay those taxes as a beneficiary.
No, it's a big deal. I heard about aren't taxes kind of like lower now? If you want to move some stuff around, now would be a really good time to do that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the lowest we've seen taxes in a long time. So obviously there's thoughts of, with a new president, with a new Congress, are taxes going to rise? Are they going to change? This is the lowest we've seen them, and so even if there was the same president or same Congress involved, etc., how much lower can we really go? So yeah. The thought is these are low times right now, and so prepare for 15 years from now. What are we going to see moving forward? And so this can be a very good time. And again, I say it with every single person is different. So I wouldn't, recommend anybody just go do whatever. You want to make sure you're getting consulting with especially from us, we say it a lot. I say it a lot. I know enough about taxes to be dangerous and maybe get myself in trouble. I'm not a tax professional. So we love to work with the tax professional that the client has, and along with the attorney, of course, to make sure we're making all those right decisions. But no, you are right. So that is something that if you haven't looked into, you may want to.
No, that's all great advice. I certainly appreciate it. We're going to come back around to you and talk about insurance, long-term care insurance, and insurance needs. Nafi, I'm going to bring you on, my dear. Now, tell me a little bit about, a lot of people think that hospice means that's it. You know, it's the end of life. They don't believe that people can graduate from hospice. So talk to us about what hospice is and also how it's paid for.
Well, thank you, Amanda. That word hospice is a scary word to a lot of people. It's not a topic that people want to talk about, but it's a very important one to understand. Unfortunately, many of us will sometimes need, and some people don't need hospice, but a lot of people do need hospice. So what hospice provides is in-home care for the most part. We provide palliative care, which means just keeping people symptom-free in managing their pain. And a lot of times we will provide hospital beds, all the equipment that you might need at home to keep you comfortable in your own home, because you have maybe you're battling something or have a chronic disease, and the doctors have determined that there is nothing they can do to improve your health. At that point, we can come in to make sure that you're having that better quality of life for the rest of your days. And so a lot of times people are afraid, well, that's going to cost a lot of money, because they hear, oh, you have the staff coming to you, you have the equipment being delivered to your home, and everything is attended to you. And they think, well, that's got to be expensive. But no, actually, talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurances will cover hospice benefits for you. So all of that I just named, your bedside commodes, your medication to help you during that time, all the clinical people coming to your home, and all of that equipment will be taken care of through your Medicare. And if you do not have Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance, we at Tidewell do not leave anybody behind. We have given about more than $2 million in charitable fund a year to people who don't have insurance, or people who cannot afford just anything, maybe their copays and things like that. So we are all about servicing and providing this service, no matter what it takes. So financial situation should not stop you from seeking some assistance from Tidewell. So know that this is a benefit that you've paid for through Medicare Part A, and Medicare will definitely, if you have a prognosis of 6 months or less, they will certainly be able to take care of your needs.
Yeah, a couple things following up on that. And number one, when my grandfather was going through hospice, I truly didn't realize that the medications were covered. So I was very surprised with that, because medications can get quite expensive when you're dealing with pain management like that. And the second thing, you know, hospice is a scary word, but families really need to understand that it's a benefit to them. It's as a caregiver, when you're going through all of that emotion, you really need their services. It's like having angels surrounding you. I really am such a believer in bringing in hospice early so somebody can have a really good quality of life. So talk to me a little bit about that, because I think that people wait too late until they bring hospice in. So tell us when the right time to consider hospice would be.
Well, the right time is once you know that this journey is really, there's no other tests you can do out there. There's no other treatment out there for you. And it's just a matter of time when the doctors know that right now the battle is cannot be won with that specific disease. You can definitely seek out, like I said, if you have a prognosis of 6 months or less, Medicare will definitely allow us to come in and care for you. But people tend to wait until maybe a week or even less days for us to come in, because they think that calling hospice means giving up on your loved ones. And I absolutely believe the opposite. Calling hospice means getting help for yourself, getting help for that patient, Because as I mentioned earlier, we're all about the entire family. It's not just about pumping medication for that patient. We take care of that spiritual need, the emotional need. We have social workers who will provide the guidance and resources and information, what to expect in this journey, how to deal with the situation. I cannot tell you how many times we hear people say, I wish I had known sooner, or I wish I had called sooner, because they did not realize of the support that's available with our chaplains, the CNAs who come into the home and help even with the grooming of the patient, taking care of what that patient needs. You get respite with a whole lot of volunteers that we have who come into your home also to give you a break, whether you need to go to a hair salon or need to go grab a bite with a girlfriend, or just need some shopping done, and you want to make sure that your loved one is safe and secure in your own home. So people just don't understand that the benefits that come with it is really astronomical. So don't be afraid to seek out and get just an evaluation sometimes.
Exactly.
It doesn't take much. We don't charge anything for that. We will send a nurse to come chat with the family, talk about the services that we can provide for you, because each person and each family is different. And we are very much pro customizing the services to that particular needs of that family and making sure we're providing all the things to help that quality of life.
And that's so important. Thank you, Nafi. All right, Daniel, we touched on this a little bit as far as getting qualified for Medicaid and protecting your estate from for your family after you pass away. Talk to me about what documents you need to have in place for that protection.
Right, sure. I think it's important to understand too, for Medicaid, there's two main programs that we talk about for long-term care. First is the Medicaid waiver program, and that's for assisted living and home care. It's a much smaller pot of money. It's not fully funded, and that's why there's a wait list for that program. And it provides a stipend, but may not cover the full cost of care at the assisted living facility, depending on the type of care that the applicant may need. Now, Medicaid ICP, the institutionalized care program, that's Medicaid for skilled nursing, right? So if the applicant is qualified at the skilled nursing level, it's fully funded, much larger pot of money. And as long as they meet the asset and income requirements, then they get that full benefit, which is nice because it's essentially the applicant's income, and they get to keep $130 a month for personal needs. But then the Medicaid ICP program covers the balance for skilled nursing. And it can be, $9,500 a month and up. So it's a really nice benefit to provide for those who need skilled nursing. Now, in terms of qualification, really need to look at the family scenario, right? Is there a spouse? Because the spouse's income and assets are going to need to be reported, right? But we can do planning with that. There are several exempt assets too, such as the primary residence. And Chad mentioned required minimum distributions. And I know through all this COVID, the required minimum distributions were suspended for some time, but they didn't change the Medicaid rules, which is important in Florida because Florida exempts retirement accounts and they don't count them as an asset as long as required minimum distributions are being taken. And so that's why we have to counsel the clients that, if they're going to need Medicaid on the horizon, make sure they're still taking those RMDs. So, and I'm sure that that's probably going to be lifted in the near future post-COVID, but just to keep in mind, if you have a family with a loved one that may need skilled nursing in the near future. But there are a lot of strategies to help protect, particularly with spouses or individuals if needed.
And just jump in there real quick, Daniel. 2021 RMBs are required again now. So that is
very good.
Yep. So they suspended for 2020, but for 2021 they are back. And most people, to be honest with you, they use their RMDs for a reason, income a lot of times. So 2020, people were taking income from it most likely, but it is back. 2021, you're required to take RMDs.
And this is why it's so important to have these panel discussions and get the education out. I'm sure that all of you that are watching are going to have questions. So please make sure you put them in the chat and we will get your questions answered for you. All right, Anthony, the ABCs, the Ds, the Fs, the Gs. My Medicare guy. How often can you change your plan? Talk to me about when you can change a plan.
Great question. And before I tackle that, if I could, just circling to that last question we had, I want to add one of the most common misconceptions as it pertains to Medicare is that Medicare covers long-term care, but it does not. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Why it's vastly important for consumers that think something like that may be on the horizon to have a policy in place or a game plan in place, whether that pertains to Medicaid or not. But as it pertains to your question, how often can you change plans? It depends. There are over 35 election periods
It
available.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
There's over 35 election periods available annually that consumers can take advantage of, whether they qualify for it or not. It depends on their circumstances. The most common one, people aging into Medicare, turning 65. One that is often overlooked, people don't think they have the ability to. When you move, as simple as someone moving from up north to Florida, that never happens, right? That move is something that grants you the ability to change plans. In fact, moving one county to another gives you an opportunity to change plans because now you have different options available in the county of which you reside, whether it be more or less than the one that you came from. Every consumer has the annual enrollment period annually. That's October 15th through December 7th. That's probably the wild, wild west as it pertains to Medicare, or our season, if we had to classify it as one, where individuals in Advantage plans and drug plans are changing after reviewing their options for the next year. And so those changes would take place for January of the new year. So there's many different circumstances or opportunities. I tell everyone, if you think you've had a life-changing event, whether that be moving or now you're getting ready to move into a nursing home or a long-term care facility or out of one of those, there's a bunch of opportunities out there to take advantage of. I don't memorize them. There's too many of them to know out there, but I know how to find them. So if there's an opportunity, that's something that we do, is help people find that chance to make a move if they need to.
Yeah, if they need to, for sure. All right, Chad, talk to me about long-term care insurance. What type? There's so many different types of long-term care insurance policies out there. And I'm sure that you could give me the same answer as Anthony's famous t-shirt quote.
It depends.
It depends. Which one's right for you?
Yeah, no, of course. There's the way that we always talk with our clients about long-term care is, you can throw the statistics out there of who's going to need it. And most of the time, it's the female or the wife who typically uses it because they typically take care of the husband when they are in long-term care. But there's really two ways you can insure with it. Insure yourself for it or pay throughout with your own assets. The problem with paying with your own assets is that long-term care can be very expensive. It could be 2 months, it could be 2 years, it could be 2 decades. So there's no real known value there for how much it's going to cost. You can look at the different costs, of course, in the Gulf Coast area and what we're paying daily, $25 an hour for home health care, typically, minimum. I'd probably say your average, assisted living is going to be somewhere in the range of $4,000 to $5,000, I guess, a month, maybe somewhere in that range. And so really, if you're going to do it with your own assets, you gotta have a lot of assets there to be able to take care of that. And then not only take care of yourself or your spouse or whoever may be in long-term care, but any kind of legacy planning you want as well. So typically we encourage people to look at the insurance side of it and to insure yourself. And it's very similar to insuring a car, insuring your house. You don't know if you're going to use it, but when you do need it, you're really, really glad you have it. And so older policies, I would say, have gone away. When I say older policies, older long-term care policies, where they use it or lose it. Very similar to your car insurance or very similar to your home insurance. I've never used my home insurance in 17 years of owning a home. So, it's, knock on wood. We always say, well, what are we doing? But with long-term care insurance, the old policies, that's how they were. They were use it or lose it. Today, they've kind of gone to a hybrid mode because insurance companies are realizing it's much harder to sell because of the use it or lose it. So there are several different types of long-term care. And I would say the most popular ones are one that's attached to a life insurance policy. So you would open up a life insurance policy and have, and it depends on your age and your value of and all that, those kind of things. But basically you would have a lump sum of money set aside inside that policy for long-term care. Typically we would write or look at writing somebody for the average stay wherever they may be. And so the death benefit's not really the ultimate means to the policy. It's really more about the long-term care part.
Yeah.
But what's great is that if you don't ever use it and you pass away, the death benefit now goes to beneficiaries. So that's where it's no longer use it or lose it. If you don't use it, there's able to be a death benefit there. And so that's really the way they've gone hybrid wise. And then there's also one that Lincoln does. It's basically a lump sum, basic value, what I just said. And so you use that kind of pot of money and use it down as you go forward. So there is a lot of intricacies to the long-term care. Different companies have different ways of what they pay, how they pay. Is it reimbursement? Is it not? So a lot of things to look into.
Sure.
And it can be complicated. And everybody's situation is different. So it's really good to be able to get maybe a couple different opinions on it, or a couple different policies to say which one fits, my situation best.
Yeah, because it just depends.
It does.
All right, Nafi. Now we touched on this a little bit as far as hospice really being there for the caregivers and the family. After someone does pass away, what services does Tidewell offer? I'll segue that with what other services do you offer in general? Because there's so much more to you than just hospice.
Well, great point that you brought that up, because as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of services that people don't know about. So one major contributor that we, not only for our patient, but the community in general, is our grief services. Our grief services are not funded by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. That is completely funded by donors. Mm-hmm. And so through our foundation, they raised about $1 million to run that department. And it is providing, last year, we served about 9,000 people. The year before was 10,000. So we have reached a lot of people, providing grief, educational support, one-on-one services, as well as providing group sessions, and we have specialized sessions, group sessions as well, whether, you've lost somebody through suicide, or you've lost a spouse, lost a child, you can relate to those people more so than just a general grief session. So we have those LGBTQ sessions. We see what does the community need, and we try to fulfill that need. And so we also are at schools, like some of the schools in Sarasota, such as, Sarasota High. We have a counselor that goes there from September to May, providing services every single week to those students who might have suffered a loss. So we are definitely in case, some tragic events happen in the community as well, we are called upon. Maybe it's people who you've worked with, that organization has had a tragic loss, or there's been a shooting, and we will go and provide support to that entire school or that entire organization, and help folks also deal with that, because grief is different from one person to another. Mm-hmm. And there's no time limit. There is no get over it. There's no, it's been a year, you should be okay now. Right. Each individual grieves differently, and we recognize that and want to provide that help, whether it's for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years. One of the groups in Bradenton, just prior to COVID, they bonded so well that they took a cruise and went on a cruise together. And as they explained when they walked, oh, what kind of group is it? It's a grief group. And people will look at them again like, what? It's a grief group that's coming together. Yeah. So there's definitely that camaraderie that they build, that commonality that keeps them going. And I can't say anything I can't say enough about grief without saying our Blue Butterfly program, which is about children and families. We encompass the whole family for children between the ages of 5 to 18, where we give them tools to cope with the loss that they have. So we have them broken into groups, age appropriate groups, to be able to help them, you know, find that peer-to-peer understanding of they're not alone. There are other people who've lost a very important person in their lives, and also providing that support to the families, to the caregivers. How do you deal with now this child who's grieving, but also you personally are grieving at the same time, and maybe now you're being the sole provider. So all of these services are here and available for no cost at all to individuals who need it.
And I'm sure that you welcome volunteers for all of our viewers out there that might want to get involved with a special organization.
Absolutely. We are always looking for volunteers. We cannot do what we do without our volunteers, but COVID has caused a little bit of apprehension, which we completely understand. But if you're vaccinated and you're able to assist, these groups need you. And we have tons of different opportunities for you to support Tidewell in various ways as well. So thank you. If you would like to volunteer, definitely visit our website at tidewell.org, or you can reach us at 941-894-1777.
Perfect. All the information is going to be in the chat. I'm sure that all of you that are out there watching today have questions, so please make sure you reach out to the panelists individually. This is why I love what I do. I think this has been a fantastic, dynamic group of individuals that took time out of their morning to spend it with you. So thank you all